Deep in the Black Shroud lies an untamed woodland known as Sorrelhaven. This haunted grove is infected with monsters that thrive on seeking their next meal. One would think that would be the end of it, but watching silently from the shadows there lurks a forgotten symbol of Gridanian wealth. Although purchased by a wealthy wildwood Eorzea, the ghostly presence of Haukke Manor lies abandoned after the events of the 7th Umbral Calamity. At least, this is what the Seedseers would have you believe. But legends state that those who wander in the shadow of the manor have heard blood-curdling screams from deep within its halls, while others have gone missing altogether, only to be found with their faces horribly mutilated. And so, we find ourselves at the Devil's doorstep, and we won't be leaving until we confirm once and for all whether the lady of the house ever truly left. My name is Juliet, and this is the Eorzean Historian. Haukke Manor's date of construction eludes us, but what we do know is that the manor was once used by the Seedseers as a place of reflection and meditation. The name Haukke is even an ancient Pajali word that means to speak without words. However, many of Gridanian's residents felt the existence of the manor and its use by their leaders as a symbol of excess and abuse of the Shroud's resources. Eventually, the Seedseers came to agree with this statement and put the manor up for sale. It was eventually sold to a beautiful woman by the name of Lady Amandine of House Dardancourt, where it was then repurposed for private use that befitted a woman of wealth and nobility. Not much is known about Lady Amandine, or even her noble house, but one phrase was synonymous with her, and that was beauty everlasting. There was no secret that Lady Amandine was counted among one of the most gorgeous women to ever grace the Shroud, and it's even lesser secret that she was aware of this. But as the story always goes, beauty is only skin deep, and its physical appeal never lasts. When Dalamud tore the sky asunder and unleashed the unrivaled fury of Bahamut, absolute destruction followed in its wake. Thousands of lives were not only lost, but outright destroyed. When the flames finally settled, Lady Amandine herself awoke to an apocalyptic hell, but not in the way you might think. For you see, she was gravely injured in the conflagration, and her face bore terrible, gruesome wounds that, when finally healed, permanently etched her face with horrific, unseemly scars. From that day forth, Lady Amandine shut herself and the estate out from the entire world. All had assumed the mansion long abandoned, if they even gave it a single thought. As months turned to years, the memory of the mansion faded from the people's minds. Engrossed in the recovery of the realm, no one knew nor cared that deep in the woods, an evil was festering. That's when the murders began. Without cause or reason, bodies of beautiful maidens began to surface throughout the Shroud, each one's face gouged beyond recognition. The Twin Adder could not make heads nor tails of what caused this horrible slaughter, until a button found on one of the victims ultimately tied her to the ever-lurking Haukke Manor. An investigation ensued, and what was uncovered left many mortified. Lady Amandine not only remained in the manor after all this time, she seemed to have thrived. Her sanity, having trickled away after years of isolation and manic depression over her appearance, had driven the esteemed noblewoman to recovering her lost visage via unconventional means. It's unknown what started the massacre, but whispers say that one evening, after she had seen every chirurgeon in the realm, she was approached by masked men in black robes. These mysterious men promised beauty everlasting. Desperate to obtain this by any means, she sold her soul to the void scent known as Haukke Manor. No sooner had she done so Then a darkness engulfed her corpse, and again did she rise with a ghostly skin, devilish horns, and indeed, beauty everlasting. Whether the following took place before, after, or even during the ritual itself, one thing is certain: Lady Amandine would stop at nothing to obtain beauty, and so it was that her homely estate was morphed into a torturous castle of death. It started with her most beautiful maidservants, tortured and sacrificed to be drained of their blood and given to the lady in some sick attempt to absorb their beauty. When the maidservants were gone, she turned to manservants. When they were gone, she turned to animals. When they did not suffice, her claws ensnared passers-by, lost in the fog of the Emerald Maze. Those who remained loyal to Lady Amandine during her descent into madness were granted immortality by becoming void-sent themselves, while others were fodder. Her terrible crimes eventually caught up with her, and once the Adder did catch wind of the murders extending throughout the Shroud, that swift investigation turned into an adventuring assault that is believed to have rid the world of this terrible mass executioner. And that, dear viewers, is where we come in. We're here to investigate any possible things left behind, or to conduct a full investigation of the manor itself and see what secrets it may yet yield to us. One of the first things we encounter when approaching the mansion is a small bog, infested with different types of morbles. Beyond them lies the manor itself. The construction of the building is clearly Gridanian, but Lady Amandine's roots in Ishgard saw the construction of some of its finer stone architecture, such as the gate. The yard is as extravagant as it is large, and at a glance it's very clearly well looked after. Airmen have been known to wander about, which makes me wonder if even after being turned into nightmarish beasts, they may have once been caretakers that continue their duties long after the descent into madness. Pink and blue flowers litter the yards, and eerie topiaries stand vigil against anyone foolish enough, me, to walk this paved road. In the center of the path is a lily pond, and the way the waterways flow into it almost make it look like an airman in its own right. Some of the most curious structures are to the sides. Large swirling metal grates with circular brick floors. 2 are empty, while 2 contain a large iron winch and suspended cage. It's hard to perceive what these might have once been used for, as their suspension accounts for barely a few falls. Believe it or not, these were most likely used as braziers, rather than prisons. The proof of this lies deep within the manor, though I suppose I can never fully rule out they weren't used for both. Another interesting find are these stairwells that lead into the waterways. It's likely these were constructed for maintenance workers to enter the paths and clean and maintain the elaborate pond. On the north side of the house, there is another stairwell that leads down to a barred-off door. This is most likely what remains of the servants' entrance. It's irregular for an entrance to be close to the main door, but given the location of the manor between these rocky crevices, it seems to have been built as a necessity for it. The fact that it's boarded up not only displays the need to trap prey within, but also showcases how the need for employees dwindled and placed the entrance out of service. The last interesting thing to note were the addition of these ghastly gargoyle statues, leering down from their perch as if ready to pounce on their prey at any given moment. Immediately upon entering, we're met with an overwhelming sense of dread. The sky-high ceilings and grand stairwell make me feel no larger than a beetle. A massive ornate cross is hewn into the carpet, and this pattern reoccurs on the very stonework floors as well. I'm not sure if this symbol has any meaning, as the crest of House Dardancourt is known to be a white lily. Some of the lamps are lit, as well as the candles. Potted plants have long since rotted away. Furniture lies dormant and coated in dust. There's even what remains of a small sitting area. One can almost see the ghosts of people who'd come to visit, waiting and undertaking pleasant conversation, all without knowing those very halls would be home to murders and evil most foul. Suspended above all, hidden in the darkness, there rests an intricate banner. The woven hearts are almost reminiscent of the legendary Scathach, but no known connection exists outside of them both simply being void-sent. Another banner hangs over the north half. The tapestry appears to depict an object with keyholes, and the hall itself is barricaded by a wall of furniture, perhaps remnants of a coup staged by part of the manor staff, evidence of which we will find a bit later. Behind the stairwell is another sitting area facing a massive pair of red doors. These lead to the red hall, but we'll have to access it from the other side. The last thing I want to draw your attention to are these peculiar wooden frames. At first glance, I thought them to have once housed portraits, and I may still be right for some of these, but I believe they more likely held mirrors. As Vanity was Lady Amandine's dearest friend, it's likely she fashioned the entire manor to contain mirrors or portraits of herself so she could appreciate her own beauty wheresoever she went. Due to her disfiguration, however, she tore them down, or shattered them, leaving naught but blank wooden frames cast in shadow. The East Hall is void of anything unique, but it does lead us to our first room. Room 1, as I've named it, seems to be some kind of office or waiting room. It has 2 sitting areas and a desk in the center. Much of the furniture has been covered in sheets. The depth of this might speak to the decaying minds of those who ran the house. Covering the furniture speaks to a lack of use, but desire to preserve, as the staff was either slowly killed, transfigured, or simply fired from the residence. Much of the manor may be in a permanent state of purgatory. I think I hear something. It seems we may not be alone after all. That was a succubus. Succubus are known to occupy the 3rd and 4th rungs of the void. In order to enter this world, they occupy the bodies of recently deceased maidens. As if that wasn't disturbing enough, they've even been known to adapt certain personality traits of their host's body, which might explain why Lady Amandine's continuous thirst for maiden blood exists beyond transformation. Unless I want to be next, we'll need to tread carefully. The South Hall, much like the North, has been barricaded by a wall of furniture, but also fallen debris from a massive hole in the 2nd floor. Like I said before, I believe this was done during some kind of internal battle between Lady Amandine and the things she was doing, versus several members of her staff that can no longer follow her demented orders. One piece of evidence to this event lies in room number 2. It's unclear what the main purpose of this room was, whether it was an armory or a simple display of artifacts, but one thing is likely: it seems to have been used as a staging area. As we can see along the table, a variety of swords, bucklers, and even a musket has been placed over the cloth. While it could be argued this room was merely a place to polish these artifacts, as evidenced by vases sitting atop cloths, I find it may have served both purposes. Curiously, there is a line of chairs just outside the room. They clearly serve the purpose for waiting, but for what we may never know. Next is room 3. From what I can tell, this room works in conjunction with room 4. Rooms 3 and 4 seem to be some type of bureaucratic room. There are various desks and chairs, placed in such a way that does not suggest storage but frequent use. There are even partitions that single out what appear to be break rooms. What day-to-day tasks were performed in this room that facilitated such administrative needs is lost on me, as I'm penniless and know not how the rich live. The room contains several parcels, and the desks have wooden chests that likely contain paper. Room 4 seems to serve a similar purpose as 3, but contains sectioned off parts designed for what appear to be higher-ranked officials. They probably overlooked many of the jobs of the room during... What is that? I think I hear music. That's odd. It just stopped. Fitting that it came from here. This is room 5, the orchestra room. As you can see, a myriad of instruments is sat here gathering dust, while chairs are still placed in their rows, as if only used yesterday. The West Hall dons those same keyhole banners and contains room 6. Room 6 does, for once, actually seem like a dedicated storage room. It's filled with various types of furniture and crates, and some even clearly stacked and stored. The larger tables and chairs have protective cloth over them, and the room is lit using unique light fixtures that appears rarely within the manor. The path to the North Hall is, as expected, barred by furniture, but the door beside it contains room 7. The 7th room is a pantry or something similar. It contains large racks with barrels of wine, as well as rows of shelves containing jars of preservatives, boxes, sacks of grains, and other ingredients. While there is no dedicated cooking spot, this room breathes an air of food storage. Another facet in this mysterious manor is the use of Lalafell step stools. It's clear that Lalafels were employed within the manor, but step stools are restricted to this room and another in the basement. While unconfirmed, it leads one to wonder how the giftedly tall Lady Amandine may have felt about our shorter friends. Now this is interesting. It seems the manor sentry guards access to the Red Hall. Upon its defeat, the interior houses an intimidating succubus. It seems the Voidsent haven't all truly been dispatched. The reports stated the Voidsent found here is a matter of claviger, which is to say her duties are to hold fast to a set of keys. No doubt the keys to the Cellarage. The Red Hall was once a famous ballroom where Lady Amandine would host several parties. Even now, the furniture remains untouched. Benches line the walls where patrons would await a dance, a corner with a band for playing the music, a sitting area to relax, and a small nook used by the servants for catering. And although they no longer cast light, the grand chandeliers forever remain suspended, like ghostly apparitions of a time long since past. The door to the cellarage is ornate in design, but what draws the eye even more is a bloodstain, clearly left behind by the dragging of someone in jeopardy. The stairwell leading down is wooden in design. It used to stretch around the whole other side of the room, but it's since collapsed either during the internal scuffle or general neglect. The shelves across the room contain various objects stored away, such as wood, crates, and barrels, and there they have remained, never to be touched again. It's a haunting thought, as someone went about their day-to-day and placed one of the objects there, never giving the slightest thought of what terrors were just around the corner. I think I hear laughter. It seems the cellarage contains reanimated corpses still, no doubt servants of Lady Amandine, but unlike her beloved Voidsent, these spawns of undead are likely forced into servitude beyond their demise. The base of the stairs contain many items left to rot, same as the shelves above, and due to their ungodly stench, we shan't linger much longer. Contrary to the manor's wooden construction, the cellarage is built top to bottom from cold stone. Not only did this offer a durable foundation for the manor above, but was instrumental in retaining a cold, unforgiving environment for the tortured victims. As you can see, every room once used with an innocent purpose has been gated off by thick, heavy iron bars. The first cell is very traditional. It contains everything you would expect from a prison: beds, slop buckets, and some scattered crates, though their purpose is undefined. Cell Block 2 retains much of its original function. While gated off like the rest, its purpose of this room was to store general yard equipment. Cell Block 3, on the other hand, stores something much more nefarious. In the corner rest 2 guillotines, poised and ready for usage. I believe these are stored due to their being pressed against the wall. On the ground, we can find scattered objects, such as a sword, a scythe, and even a stockade. A table against the wall has pairs of tongs, likely used in pulling out the tongues of would-be victims of torture. And where that failed, the other corner holds a large and unsettling style of rack. Again, I believe this one might be in storage, but snapped ropes can still be seen ensnared around the cylinder. It seems this device would strap a person in and pull them in either direction, one via rope and cylinder, the other by a pair of spiked wheels, shredding whatever was caught. You can almost hear the screams penetrate your soul. Cell Block 4 is nowhere near as bloodied, but certainly not any less horrible. It's another prison, complete with more beds, wash basins, and slop buckets, even a few tables still holding plates. I can't help but wonder if these plates were someone's last meal. Now, Cell Block 5 is somewhere special. Marked on the map, it's known as the Bottlery. It was here that Lady Amandine stored her most precious wines, and just like the racks upstairs, these also have Lalafellan stepladders. That being said, the gate to the cell was sealed shut, and required a spare key to unlock it. Located within were undead servants. Is it at all possible that these were survivors of the possible coup against the manor, imprisoned in the cells and left to die before being reanimated again? The final cell, much like Cell Block 1 and 4, was used as a standard prison cell. It contains many of the same artifacts as before, such as beds, shackles, buckets, and another pair of dining tables. This bed in particular with the shackles gives me a harrowing thought. You can almost imagine a poor young woman being awoken from whatever slumber she could steal, and having her shackles removed right then and there. then tossed aside on her sheets, only to then be ushered to our next and final room of the Cellarage. Located in the deepest part of Haukke Manor, in the heart of the Cellarage, there lies the infamous Yellow Hall. This cold, damp chamber was the location of every sacrifice and act of torture performed by Lady Amandine and her hellish staff. It's occupied by what remains of the court jester and the manor steward. Once dispatched, the chamber is ours to explore. First and foremost, notice the cages with the lit braziers inside. These are identical to the cages that would be suspended in the front yard, just a bit smaller. It's for this reason I believe the ones in the yard once held braziers as well. But whether they may have contained prisoners too, I cannot say. The floor is stained with a pool of blood, and the walls are shackled by chains. Small vents can be seen in the ceiling, and with the devices scattered around this room, I'm sure many a servant heard the cries of terror. There are 3 standard-sized and constructed guillotines, but then there are 2 much larger dual guillotines. Through a bit of theorizing, I believe these were meant for large beasts. They would step over the bars on the ground, and then be locked in from either side. The blades would then come down and swiftly either behead the creature, or pierce its back with such a force the creature would bleed out in seconds. There is another rack, accompanied by a violent swipe of blood. Several tools are situated nearby meant for poking and prodding victims. Large cells were also constructed in the back wall of the chamber, likely holding the victims who would be serviced next. It's practically impossible to imagine the fear these women felt, watching what became of the name chosen before them, knowing they'd be next. To the right of the room is a large wooden crane holding a cage. This cage was used to trap a victim and then dunk them in the water below the grate I stand on now. But perhaps one of the most harrowing devices in this room is a single, bizarre guillotine. This guillotine is a machine designed to behead multiple people at once. The prisoners would be forced to lay on this bed and then held in place, not by stockades, but by piercing, sharp spikes. I can't begin to fathom what it must have felt like to be locked so violently in place, hand clasped to the woman beside you. The only saving grace for something this horrific would be the bittersweet knowledge that you were not beneath that blade alone. The upstairs doesn't fare too much better than below. The north hall is blocked by more furniture, while the south has no real differences from the others. There are some wild guard dogs and ghostly will-o-wisps, but otherwise the only other remarkable thing is a peculiar crystal ball tucked away in a shadowy corner. I am to understand it has many uses, but at the moment it doesn't seem willing to divulge its secrets. The hall then stops at a massive hole in the floor, seen earlier from below, but we have to access one more room before the last. This room appears to be some kind of servants' quarters, as it contained a large table for dining, several beds, a few kitchen supplies, a desk, bookshelves, and a fireplace. What was once a comfy abode is now a torn and shattered relic of an era of peace. What is interesting is that in this room, and the hall leading up to it, there's extensive damage that isn't anywhere else in the manor. Even further proof, I think, that some sort of skirmish happened within these walls. The final room to explore on this expedition is the White Hall. This was Lady Amandine's personal bedroom. Thankfully, she's been cleared out, so we no longer have to worry about Son of a She's alive. She's very alive. Alright, now that that's taken care of, it seems Lady Amandine has no desire to remain in the void. For the moment, she's gone, and we can have a little poke around. Most of the bedroom is in shambles, much of the items unneeded by a succubus, I suppose. Void lamps sit in the corners, casting painful spells on anyone who draws near when activated. Most notably is a small vanity desk, and as you can see, the mirror is shattered. No doubt due to Lady Amandine's refusal to see her own reflection after the disfiguration. Among the piles of trash and debris, you would also find an intact desk, and impaled through the chair is a single sword. This sword is ultimately what drives the theory that there was some kind of internal battle between Lady Amandine and some of her servants in a coup. At least, it's very clear that the blade had been launched at someone's head. Whoever attempted this act of betrayal was certainly unsuccessful, and what happened to them is hardly a mystery. The last portion of the bedroom is Lady Amandine's own bed. Clearly a luxurious design, this bed has since become tattered and worn. Bits of furniture lie scattered about, but one in particular catches the eye. A strange black covered in a white sheet. At first I thought this another mirror, but upon closer inspection, I realized it was an easel of all things. It's easy to forget that, before she was a monster, before a murderer, she was a person, someone who loved not just herself, but life. She enjoyed painting, music, and above all, socializing. So, while I can never condone the choices she made in her madness, I can no less feel sad for the woman who preceded them. If only she had found peace in what had happened to her, who knows how many lives could have been saved. After our last investigation, I submitted my findings to the Order of the Twin Adder. In response, the Wood Whalers were sent to investigate any remaining void scent within the manor, and by the 12 did they find some. We're returning to the God's Forsaken Manor to document what we might find inside. Immediately we can see many of the lights have been ignited, and the air is thick with reddish smoke. The main floor is barricaded, likely due to the fight between the Whalers and the void scent. We're forced upstairs and more barricades push us to the previously inaccessible North Hall. The first room we encounter is much like a previous room. It appears to be some kind of servants' quarters. In fact, room 2 and 3 beyond are also of the same type. Scattered beds and tables clearly showcase a place of rest, and given the frequency I can only assume they belong to the many servants that walk these halls. The West Hall is littered with void scent, and beyond them is the entrance back to the White Hall. It's guarded on either side by gargoyles, which appear to have once been sentries who protected the room, still locked in undying servitude. The White Hall itself is largely the same, though a manor jester is accompanied by butlers, and Lady Amandine is nowhere to be found. Just beyond we find ourselves at a crystal ball, like the one we'd found earlier, but this time it seems supercharged with some kind of ethereal magics. A smart person wouldn't touch it with a 10-fold pole. I am not a smart person. It appears to have teleported us to the North Hall on the ground floor. The void lamps that once sat in the White Hall have been repositioned here, and going near them causes a blanket of magic to strike at any unfortunate soul. They can be shut down by the defeat of a poor altered wood whaler, though. There are 2 chambers along this hall that are blocked by some kind of barrier. The first of these 2 rooms is a perfectly intact kitchen. It contains a stove, prep table, and other amenities, but also contains a series of beds and wardrobes. This suggests that those who worked in the kitchens also lived there. The next room is a gorgeous, perfectly preserved dining room. The candles are lit, the fireplace ignited, and long, elegant tables are still set with dishes for a meal that will never come. The final basic room along this hallway is a lounge. Like the previous rooms, this lounge has somehow been spared any form of destruction. It's almost so inviting that, were we not in the midst of nightmarish creatures hell-bent on turning me into a succubus, I might take a little catnap. The Red Hall hasn't seen many changes, though the candles that line the walls have now been lit, and instead of a claviger we find ourselves face to face with a creature known as Ash. Unlike many of the other denizens of the manor, Ash doesn't appear to have been an employee, but rather an archdemon, which possessed fly-blown remains of overworked beasts of burden. This might tie into the theory about Lady Amandine's slaughtered beasts. Originating from the 4th rung, they are skilled in arts of weaponry, capable of generating blades from ether that they had claimed from the world around them. Their grunts and heaves are actually them attempting to speak in the tongue of man, but are incapable due to the void scent's rotting throat. Beyond this creature is another crystal ball, so I say, we see where it takes us next. And it looks like it landed us straight into a jail cell. Luckily the door is unlocked. Nothing about the cells has changed, but the stone halls are littered with manor footmen. Given how well they're armed, it's likely they were employed as guards throughout the manor. The final stop is our return to the Yellow Hall. It remains just as horrific, just as bloody, as our last quest, but now is home to an incredibly powerful succubus known as Haukke Manor. She is a high-ranking void scent, especially over succubus. Believe it or not, the name derives from an old legend and was given to the void scent by Lady Amandine, who was an avid bibliophile. This reflects void scent's aversions to being under another's control, as They do not readily reveal their true names. When engaged in combat, this unforgiving beast can be seen absorbing the souls of fellow succubus, and even the unfortunate Lady Amandine herself, in order to gain strength and defeat her foes. Unfortunately for her, nothing awaits but swift retribution for the horrible crimes she and her ilk have committed in the name of everlasting beauty. It's a bit sad, but not every story has a happy ending. While it's true the Voidsent may be mostly cast away from Haukke Manor, no amount of time or gil will ever be able to erase the atrocities that took place in its darkened halls. The best we can do is hang our heads for the fallen victims of this disaster, and do our best to carry on with their memories, even if the events still leave that bitter taste in our mouths. And if you ever find yourself in the wilds of Sorrelhaven, lost in the lurking shadow of Haukke Manor, you do well to turn around and run as fast as you can, never looking back. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'd like to give a special shout out to Migraine Thresher for correctly guessing this month's video. Way to go. This one might be a bit harder, so be sure to put your thinking caps on, and as always, the first to correctly guess it will get a shout out in the next video. If you enjoyed this special All Saints Wake themed video, please feel free to like, sub, share, and then comment your own harrowing adventure below. This has been the Eorzean Historian, signing off until our next great adventure. Ciao for now!